Hey, Programming 12, we are going to take a look at the Goomba class now. The Goomba class is going to be the first of our enemies, and the enemies, of course, have their own built-in behavior. They're still F-boxes, right? They're still built on that same foundation. Same with F-lava or, the F-bridge or any of those things. They're all really just F-boxes, but we are going to build some new code on top of that to make them move and make decisions and so on. So one thing to start with before we get going is, at some point I had these like L and R variables. I think I made them in F player. There was something up here where I defined those. I found they were useful also for F Goomba. So what I did was I moved them from F player and I put them into game object. That way anything that's a game object can refer to L and R, and it just will, help me to stay consistent. I could have just, in addition to having an L and R here, I could have made another L and R here, but it seemed like, repeating myself was a bad call. So I happily moved those up into the game object. And I recommend anytime you find something that's being repeated, good idea to move it over into the game object. And we might talk a bit about some of those things as we're going forward. We have is touching, for example, up here, because everything needs to check if they're touching something. Well, that's other possible things could be moved into game object to make your lives easier. Right now, though, we'll just focus on the Goomba class, and you'll notice that the Goomba has some additional properties, some additional instance variables. It has a direction, just like our F player. It has a speed, and it has a frame, which is sort of its frame of animation, because it has images that it's going to cycle through. So in order to set that up, I guess I should mention that I've also loaded the images for the Goomba. They're on Teams, and you can download them from our team. And of course, I've made, if I can find it, Goomba. Ooh, how do I find that? P-image Goomba. Sorry. Oh, no, it's a PIMage array. That's why. Goomba. Yeah, so I have a PIMage array for those. And Goomba, I've loaded those images here. I've also resized them. So I don't know what the original size of them are. I think they're kind of big. It's 160 by 160 or something like that. So I'm just resizing them to our grid size. It made it look a little bit pixely, but it's okay. I only have two images here. It's just one foot's up and the other one's down, and then it kind of goes back and forth to do a little pitter patter of steps. But that's going to be an important thing to have there as well. So download those pictures from Teams, make your array ready to go. Okay, so back to Goomba. This frame will keep track of where in that array I am as I'm animating. So our Goomba constructor is pretty similar, to our other constructors, F-bridge or whatever. We're just going to set position. It is important to give it a name that's appropriate so that we can check collisions possibly from the player. And then again, I set rotatable to be false so that it can't spin, although that actually sounds kind of fun now that I think about it. Having a Goomba fall upside down or spin through the air could be kind of cool, but we'll put it default false for now. Okay, so its act function. Check out its act function. Enemies generally will do these three things. They will animate, they will check for collisions, and they will move. And so as I'm thinking forward to future enemies that you're going to build, you'll probably want to use some of these things and change some of these things. Like maybe you want to have a new enemy later on move the same way as a Goomba, but its animation will be different. By breaking it into these three functions, I can override the ones that I want to and leave the other ones alone so that I can just inherit them in my future subclasses. Other enemies will extend Goomba, for example. Or maybe not. Maybe it's so different that I'll make its own sort of separate thing. So let's take a look at animate. I bet you know how to do animate. Animate's pretty much the same as an F-lava, or the player, but even more simple than the player. So it's just simply, I'm just animating by, making sure I don't go beyond the bounds of the array. And then if it's multiple of 5, the frame count, then I will attach an image of the Goomba at that frame. And I use direction if it's facing right or facing left. I might choose to attach the reverse image for facing left, or just attach the regular image for facing right. And then I just increase the frame by 1. So every 5 frames, I'll switch to a new image. So that's sort of the structure here. And note these if statements and the frame plus plus. That's inside of the the frame count mod 5. That frame count mod 5 is basically going to just make sure that these things only happen every 5th frame. So there'll be 4 frames of no animation, and then on the 5th one it will animate, and then and keep that cycle going all through the game. That's how you can slow this down. If you want to slow it down, be even slower, you can make it 10, you can make it 20, whatever you think is appropriate. I thought the 5 was cute. Its feet had a nice speed to it as it tried to walk across the screen. So that's animate. Collide is what's going to make it kind of bounce back and forth. And this is where it's really important to make sure that you've named the walls. Remember how we talked about how we made these gray pixels, and then we had to load in the walls that separately. It's not very different. Like here's my black pixels, setting the name to stone and attaching image of the stone. Well, here's my gray pixels. I'm also attaching the stone image, but I'm setting the name to wall. And here's why. When I go into my collide, I can use the isTouching function to see if I'm touching the wall. If I am, I can switch my direction. I'm using times by -1 just to switch direction. The times by a -1 property is really useful in mathematics and computer programming. It basically acts like a switch, right? If it was going left, it'll become right by multiplying by -1. So, and vice versa. So that's how I'm going to switch direction. And then this little set position here, just it basically is going to put me where I am, but I'm going to add, the direction to shift me over so I don't have that collision happen again. If you don't have this in here, it just kind of runs into the wall, and it keeps like going back and forth, like switching over and over again. So it basically ends up staying still. So this gets it off the wall so it doesn't have another collision, and then it can safely move along. And then that's collide. Then we have move. The move function is pretty straightforward. I just set velocity. I do speed times direction, so that way it's either going to move -50 to go to the left or +50 to go to the right. And then I just get the current y velocity so I don't override it. So, whatever it happens to be, if it's falling, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like it'll just pick its current y velocity from Fisica, and I won't have to program that in. But I do want to force the left and right velocity, so I can adjust that manually. So that is everything to get the Goomba going. The only thing left out is going to be making it to collide with the player. As it is right now, it's just an F box, and so when you jump on it, it's like landing on any F box that we have. It won't hurt you, and it will push you, I suppose, if you just stand there. But it's not going to be really an enemy until it can bonk you, or you can bonk it to get rid of it. So that's going to be the content of our next video. Okay, I'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.